Okay, great. We've got everyone joining us. Hello, Aaron Smith and Nancy Bakeman with the Energy and Environmental Building Alliance. And we're really happy today to be joined by Brian Kenahan and Brandon Glancy from AprilAire. One of the issues that, boy, it's been around the Midwest for a long time, right, Brandon, with radon. But I was at IBIS this past year going through the AprilAire booth and got a chance to see several new, not new, but about within the last 2.5 year radon products. And we thought it would be great to have AprilAire come back and remind us, educate us about the changing landscape on radon across the country. So we'll do questions in the Q&A. Our speakers have volunteered that I can ask those throughout today's presentation. So feel free to ask questions as we go. And with that, Brian and Brandon, welcome. And we're looking forward to learning more about your radon mitigation solutions.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for having us. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day and making us a part of it. We are just going to go ahead and jump right in here. And really today, just like you mentioned, is about creating awareness, bringing everybody up to speed so far as we know as it is today on what radon is, what it is that we're tackling when we say radon mitigation, and how it is that we can start to directly impact what is, as you'll see throughout our presentation today, no short problem in American homes. This is a situation where, as the years have gone along, and as you mentioned, maybe kind of started in the Midwest and started branching itself out, as radon testing has become more prevalent, we've gained access to seeing just how much of a potential danger there is out there in the common American home with regards to radon and what it can do to your health. And what makes radon so unique and different compared to most things that you might think of or associate with something in your home that may affect your health adversely is this is one of those elements where you can't see it, you can't smell it, you can't taste it. It's something that you really don't know is there unless either you test for it or you find out down the road that it gave you a bad problem. So with that, we're just going to jump right in. And I think it's important that we start here. And I know it kind of looks like a little bit of a warning, but the reality is this is what radon is. It's an invisible, odorless, tasteless, what I left out before, radioactive gas. And it comes right up from the ground. It comes from the radioactive decay of uranium and radium that exists naturally in rocks like granite. So that means that the more granite that there is under the place where you live, the more likely it is that you're going to have exposure in higher levels. So it depends on where your location is, just how great the exposure of radon is to you within a home. Now, there is no place that is totally safe from radon. If you were to do a radon test in every single home, you're going to get some sort of a number. The question becomes, is that number a hazardous number where we need to take action, or is that number within the designated zone that they consider to be okay to live in? Why it's becoming such an important component of what it is that people are doing in terms of measurement, identification, and mitigation is because of the effects of radon, the risks associated with long-term radon exposure from within your home. To put it in perspective, radon is the leading cause of lung cancer in non-smokers, and it claims the lives of over 3,000 people a year. It claims 6 times more lives than house fires and carbon monoxide poisoning combined. So every time you heard of something like that tragically occurring, radon had claimed 6 additional lives. And radon levels fluctuate. So really the only way to know if you are safe is to test the levels annually. Now here's the thing with radon. It is measurable and it is preventable. Not in terms of being able to prevent it from decaying underneath. That's not what it is. But what it is capable of being mitigated. So radon isn't a problem that people have to live with. More often than not, when they are aware that radon is something that's occurring, they choose to solve for that problem. How radon enters the home, it can have several different entry points, and we're speaking very high level here. But the most common and the highest risk area is from under the home, through the slab, through the basement, or through the crawl space. Now, there are variants of each one of these different construction types depending upon where we're at. So as an example, you may have heard at one point in time that if you've got a house built on sticks and you're on the beach, radon isn't something that you have to be that concerned with. And the answer to that is yes, that's true. That type of construction, based upon its geographic location near the water and the way that everything works there, it's not very likely that when you tested a home for radon in that sector, that you would have a number that is concerning. Conversely, use my in particular house as an example. Where I'm at is in Wisconsin. My home has a basement, and when we tested radon levels in my basement, and Wisconsin is over the top of a lot of granite here, our levels came out quite high, high enough that we needed to do mitigation, and that is a very, very common result in basement type applications. So really, what we're wanting to assure people here is we can't take and decide based upon geographical location that there is a safe space and a non-space safe from radon. The only way to do it is to test. But what you will find is through understanding where radon is most likely to be, you're going to encounter significantly higher levels in certain regions versus others. Now that's geographics. The other thing that comes into play is the fact that radon and the levels associated with it can fluctuate based upon a wide variety of items. Seasonally, radon levels inside of the home change. Air pressure will change the level inside of the home. Weather has a direct input on radon levels inside of the home. An example, if it was very rainy out, which it has been in a lot of the country lately, a lot of rain is usually associated with additional pressures being built up in the soils, which compacts everything and presses that radon gas up, more radon exposure inside of the home. There are many factors here, but no matter what the factor, the location, the home type, all of that being all understood, it's all about understanding the levels within each individual home through creating awareness via things like testing. Now, the radon market today is predominantly handled as a part of code-driven real estate transactions. It's almost entirely been a reactive world. And it had been the case, and Brian, feel free to jump in here as you were a part of these conversations, for a very, very long time when we at AprilAire were actually approached by the American Lung Association, who was looking for a partner in an effort to turn this from a reactive real estate via code-driven only awareness program to a proactive, how do we partner up with multiple different agencies, multiple different ways that people take measurements and everything else inside of the home, and create an awareness of something that is as dangerous as radon can be. Brian, anything you wanted to add there?
No, that's you summed it up, Brandon. The biggest thing is it's historically been a reactive market. It became known really in the 80s as, they tested some properties that the EPA didn't think much of it prior to then, that it could build up in the unsafe levels that you can see in homes. And I believe the next slide is the map where everyone is most likely familiar with, Brandon, right? So that this is a historical map that the EPA published, right? And Brandon spoke succinctly to the different levels in that dark red, and where, hey, there's a lot of granite, a lot of natural rock that you're going to see the decay of radon more prevalency. But what got lost in the shuffle of the map, and if you read the detail, it's typically there. This is not a testing map, right? This was a geological map saying, hey, this is where it's likely going to be in higher concentrations. But when we got into it, Build Productions did a spot on in January's Radon Action Awareness Month on a home they were building in Texas. And the only reason they tested the home in Texas when they were building it was because the couple moved from Michigan. They were aware that Michigan's 1 in 5 homes test high per their state's data. You can see some bright red areas in the state of Michigan. The homeowners knew the test. They said, no, we want to test it. And they were like, really? It's in Texas, right? That's zone 3. It shouldn't be high. the home tested at 10 picocuries, right? And Matt at Build Productions is originally from the Northeast, right? We know it's prevalent in the Northeast. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, where the ground zero case study was found and where the EPA found it. It's high in the Northeast, right? So this is not a testing map, and that's what we're seeing as the EPA Indoor Air Plus starts to shift, and Brandon will talk about those proposed updates, that it's going to include radon testing and the potential for mitigation, because this is not a testing map. This is a good indication that, hey, you want to be more cognizant in the bright red areas, but you don't know unless you test. And that's that mission critical that the American Lung Association, where that partnership, they asked us to get into this category, was there's just a lack of awareness on, hey, I'm in zone 3, I don't need to test. No, that's just a geological indicator that you're less likely. 10% of the homes still test high in zone 3, which Texas is the #1 new construction market. 10% of the homes in Texas, that's a lot of homes. So that's just something you'll see that the EPA is looking at. They've got a lot more test data from when they started in the 80s till now. And that's where you're starting to see the evolution of the codes and why this will help your homeowners that you're building, really nice homes that following these standards. This is just that next level that they're looking at. So back to you, Brandon. So reactive to proactive, right? That's the biggest change. Oh, we lost the screen for a second. And Brandon might have disappeared.
Well, I'll ask a question while we wait for Brandon to come back. But
Brandon left us. So
hey, there he is. Let's admit him.
We'll let him back in, I guess.
And we'll let Brandon back in. He's a pretty good guy. Yeah.
We're letting you back in. Sorry about that.
We're letting you back in.
Oh man, technology, right? When it works, it's great. All right, so let me make sure we're sharing the right thing here again. All right, can everybody see the presentation again?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful. Okay, well, sorry about that. So I'm going to pick up where I think Brian may have left off there, and that is.
Well, we're going to pause for a question, Brandon, and then we'll let you jump back into it.
Well, I think it's telling in what you said, Brian, that the EPA Indoor Air Plus program, which so many EEBA builders use across North America, is now in the version 2 that's coming. It's including radon testing in each house. And I think based on what you said, yeah, sure, the map is an indicator, but boy, if it's my house, I'm moving in. I know we did the same thing you did, Brandon. We moved into a house up here, is required to do a radon test. It was off the charts high. As part of the closing, we had to put it in. But I think it's just best practice to test no matter where you live in North America, right?
Yep. Yeah, and it's a simple once a year test, right? Test it. Hey, if you test it and it's low, great. Breathe easy.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is just that knowing factor, right?
That's right.
That's the biggest shift, and the EPA's done a great job, and you can see where a lot of this has been building, but they're also cognizant of where Brandon started. It's invisible, it's odorless, it's colorless, it's tasteless. You don't know it's there, right? It's the #1 source of ionizing radiation, but it's naturally occurring. You can't eliminate it, right? You can only mitigate it. So
that's right.
I got a good inundation on verbiage as we research this product category, because the verbiage is key on the mitigation and how they word it. So, but go ahead and pick that back up, Brandon. So.
Sounds good. Yeah, Brian, you hit the nail on the head. And what a perfect question. If you're looking at this map, and we're taking this map as based upon where I'm at, I must test for radon. Let's just forget about that. You got to throw this map away. You got to start thinking about radon as just being a thing that should be tested for everywhere. My own personal experience with it would be with a group that we're working with down in Georgia. And as an example, another large building market that's occurring for new home construction right now. And within that framework, they were looking at building in some of the more southern counties that you see on the map would fall squarely into zone 3. And yet what they're finding out is through testing that 20 to 30% of the homes in the areas that they're building are testing positive for dangerous levels of radon. So it's about creating an awareness where we can not only be impactful at the residential level by keeping people healthy from a potentially hazardous problem through creating this awareness and testing, but in addition, The more data we get back through testing, the better our maps are going to become, the more clear the picture is going to be. And that proposed update to the IAP v2, which includes that radon testing and potential mitigation should it pass, is absolutely going to be truly impactful in getting that done. And really, I think I can't sum it up any better than the US Surgeon General did, so I'm going to read it directly. You cannot predict radon levels based upon state, local, and neighborhood radon measurements. Do not rely on radon test results taken in other homes in the neighborhood to estimate the radon level in your home. Homes which are right next to each other can have different indoor radon levels. Testing is the only way to find out what your home's radon level is. I'll come right back to my own house on this one. Okay, when we first got into radon, our entire group was given a radon test kit to test our own homes. And me being somebody who likes going a little bit above and beyond, I not only did a testing of my home, but I gave my neighbors who I'm fond of their own test kits. And I've got Dave, who lives on my right side, where our homes are separated by about 150 feet. And his home came back at a very similar radon level to my own. But Mark, who's on the other side, his radon level came back well within the normal zone, to the point where I was so confused, I even had him test again and again. It came back at a completely normal level, which means really testing every home is at the heart of solving the radon problem. It really is all about just testing every single home. And that is about creating that level of awareness. We don't have to speak as industries to the potentials of what radon is going to be in effect inside of the home. There are already experts out there who have done all of the speaking for us. The US Surgeon General does have a health advisory directly on radon. The EPA continues to do its study and increase, unfortunately, its estimates of number of deaths caused in the United States annually, just in radon in and of itself. And they have their own recommendations, right? So really what we're doing through creating awareness is just supporting what these industries are looking to do. And that's important because if left up to their own devices, a lot of homeowners aren't choosing not to test for radon. Most homeowners don't know that they should, or home buyers, or people building a home. It's not something that crosses their mind necessarily. So being proactive is what's going to really help lower all the problem numbers and increase that number of awareness. So this all goes back to now, as we're discussing this today, if adopted on schedule, what would occur is all new indoor air plus homes will need to test for radon by 2025. And those above the 4 picocurie level, which is what that is there, those will need to have an active system with an audible alarm installed on them. And that's a very important number. It's that 4 picocurie level. And we want to make sure that any home that's at that level or above certainly knows that they need to mitigate the problem. Now, what a great opportunity when you think about it to proactively help home buyers. There's nothing saying that we have to wait until it becomes what is going to be written. We can start this today. And that's something that I think that we're going to be able to have great success with if we understand what it is that we're doing and we create the correct implementation plan, no matter how it is that you choose to connect with the homeowner via that. There really is nothing that's stopping you from starting right now in all of your endeavors, because as it pertains to testing, there is not a requirement, and Brian, correct me if there's anything that you want to add here, but there isn't any requirement so far as it pertains to giving away or handing out, or however you choose to do it, the simple charcoal test kit, which is as effective at testing for radon as any other test out there. It's really not any different than the test kits that a homeowner could choose to pick up from online or a retail outlet, except for the fact that we give some advantages to homeowners to help make it easy on them. But in terms of actual testing, these are charcoal test kits. Anybody can hand them out. Any homeowner or potential builder or whomever you're partnered up with can hang those test kits and proactively understand the levels of radon inside of that home, and make an educated decision ahead of the building where it's significantly easier. Not that radon mitigation systems are difficult to put in, they're not, but it's just easier, nicer, and quite frankly, most homeowners want something out of sight, out of mind these days. That can all be taken care of well before the building is completely constructed. So with that, our goal is to help everybody understand that what we are is completely aligned with what the EPA themselves is proposing. That's where we put ourselves as a company. The EPA will propose a requirement for radon testing in all indoor air plus labeled homes, regardless of geographic location. Absolutely. Because the more that we're testing in areas, the more that we're finding out you can't rely on a map from 40 years ago to determine whether or not you're in a safe space. We shouldn't assume anything. We should test and verify. That audible alarm, in addition to a YouTube manometer, which is how you measure whether or not the fan itself is operational, will be required if a fan is installed. Again, absolutely. If a fan is installed and a fan isn't running, homeowners most of the time will not know. Again, a lot of fans can be completely out of sight, out of mind. That audible alarm ensures, no different than a carbon monoxide detector or a smoke alarm, that we are being made aware that the fan is not working. If the fan's not working, the problem isn't being mitigated, and we want to take action there. Radon testing required for buildings in all radon zones except for buildings with no ground contact location. Those would be that previously mentioned stick home that I had discussed way back in the first couple of slides. If you're sitting on the beach in the Carolinas on top of a stick home, the levels of radon are well known to be well below. I would still personally test, but look, it's likely going to come back at a level that is unconcerning. So there isn't going to be the requirement there. And we're in alignment with that. Where radon testing results in greater than 4 picocuries, either a long-term test is performed, confirmed, or an active system is installed and retested. The reality is, because of the fluctuation level and the way that things can occur, we recommend that you're just putting in that test. You can certainly do a long-term test, but if you do a long-term test, you can be exposing yourself to additional problems, as well as you're going to be able to hide a radon system inside the construct of the home during new construction, as opposed to having to put it outside of the building envelope, which can be more tricky and more costly after the home has been built. So there are a lot of advantages to just taking care of it. Something that was said to me by an expert a long time ago that I've always taken to heart, and I believe, is there is no safe level of radon. There is no reason to not put a mitigation system in if you're in an area that could be affected. I could not agree more. So I've mentioned where radon systems go kind of in open air here, but let's actually take a look at where does the system fit inside of the home. There are multiple different options available for installing a radon system. Now, one of the more popular ones, especially in new construction, would be this pipe. And let me see if I can pull up my beautiful laser pointer here. Here we go. This one that's coming straight through, this looks like it's coming straight through the center of the house, out of the attic and over the top of the roof. That's the system that's usually put in during the new construction phase that can be completely hidden. Again, homeowners want these things out of sight, out of mind, if at all possible. That is an incredibly popular design in new home construction. Popular design as well, where we live in Wisconsin here, where I'm coming to you from, is this design where it takes it from under the ground through the garage, less people concerned about seeing a pipe going through the garage, and over the top of the garage. Popular in two-story homes, popular in places with basements because of its ease of installation and relative out of sight, out of mind presence post-construction. Now, more often than not, though, once we've already completed the building of the home, what we're going to end up with is a radon system that looks like this one on the right. A radon system where it is coming through, no different than any of the other ones, but we are going to likely have to put that pipe to the outside of the home and then get it out to a safe level. Again, this is going to be as effective as any of the other installations, 100%. However, there's going to be that effect of having the fan and the pipe on the outside of your home. It's going to be visible. So really, it's about creating that awareness during the building phase, getting the testing done, and getting that piece of equipment installed ahead of time to create that peace of mind. And as Brian said earlier, with no pun intended, I'm sure, allowing you to breathe easy inside of your beautiful new home. This is a slide where sometimes we'll get some questions, so I will ask, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Brandon, and if there's no questions, this group specifically, they most likely already run the passive system, right? So that would be the pipe in the middle with no fan. It's not active yet. So that if they did test and it tests high, they could activate it, right? So this group specific, most of them probably already do it in many other regions with this EEBA group, but that's just something you can see where the testing is going to be required moving forward because of the 9 out of 10 homes could test high on the same street, or 1 out of 10 homes could test high. So there's no
I think
no indication.
Brian, I think you're right that I think the good strategy, and actually I think our code here in Minnesota, where I'm coming to you from, is that you install a passive system, you have an outlet in the attic, you test at occupancy, and then if needed, you can then very simply convert it to an active system.
That's Minnesota does a nice job and is ahead of the curve. And what you see here in the Midwest a lot, the reason they use the garage attic as the energy performance side comes and builders are starting to encapsulate the attic. The biggest thing is that fan needs to be on the outside of the envelope.
That's right.
And that's why the retro job you see on that right-hand side is that fan's always on the outside. It's the number one question I get. Can I have the fan not be on the outside of the home? Can you get it in your garage attic, right? So as they plan, it's always easier to plan to run the passive systems. Where do you want that fan to be? If you're going to encapsulate that attic, I want it to be in the garage attic space, right? And again, your group's ahead of the curve, which is always great. So it's just the planning on the front side on, you want to have the passive pipe in there, the testing requirements coming. Now some of the builders I'm starting to see in these areas, look, it's part of the system now, because you do get other benefits from curing the slab faster, by the way, right? You're moving air underneath the slab, you're drying out the concrete faster. So that helps bring the humidity load down in the home quicker. That's some of those intangible benefits that you're seeing some builders that are starting to embrace that, because again, this is coming. The proposed version really takes it to the next step. It's really what your level of tolerance is. A passive system is great in Arizona, Texas, where it's only going to be 10% or so of the homes. Minnesota, it's like 50. Wisconsin, it's like 50. You're flipping the coin a lot of times. So a lot of the builders here are just starting to put the radon, active system in to help mitigate any extra after the fact when they close the home. So that's really just the tolerance in what they're looking to do. But the passive pipe, that's a great first step if you're not already doing it.
Great, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. So bring it back kind of full circle to what we've been doing for the past couple of years. And here you can actually see an active fan being installed in an attic system. What we've been working with our HVAC partners on is getting them educated and certified so that through them, they can start that proactive education of the homeowner because of how many homes they're in a year. More often than not, though, those homes are after the fact. So they're coming into homes that maybe were built 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago that don't have active radon systems, but have an active radon problem. We want to ensure that we're getting them trained up and ready to go. To do this, it used to be a little bit more difficult and certainly a cost associated with getting certifications that are more than maybe the average company would choose to take on at any individual given time. What we have done at AprilAire is we have shouldered that responsibility and that cost of the education portion combined with the certification classes. So we're partnered up with a certification company who will take all of our HVAC trade partners who are interested, get them certified at no cost to that contractor. We take care of that. And while we are creating a if you will, army of radon experts out there who are actively taking the charge to do the testing in all their homes they're in and put in those retroactive radon mitigation systems. Now, this is 100% something that we would want to pass along to you and your partners in this as well. If you are interested in attaining any of these certifications, going through the courses, understanding it and applying it in your area, look, our next course is in September, and it's not a difficult thing to get started. If you or your trade partner are interested, please let AprilAire help. Brian and his team, myself included, have done a lot of the legwork to make this as easy as possible. And quite frankly, we'll also be with you every step of the way. To get certified, all you need to do is complete certification training, which is 2 days of measurement training, followed by a week or so later, 3 days of mitigation training. If that's something that you're interested in, you can register right through our AprilAire Partners site at aprilairepartners.com/radon-certification. You'll pick your courses, you'll pick your time, or your partners will, and we will take care of the rest. All they need to do is attend. They can attend virtually. I should be very clear there. This is something that's done online via computer. They would be required to have a webcam so that they can visibly be there, and the certifiers can ensure that it's not just speaking to thin air, that there's an actual human there who they're getting certified. They will go through it as a group. And as I mentioned, a member of the AprilAire team will be with them every step of the way. Once that is completed, there are areas where there are NRPP certification tests that need to be passed in order for somebody to become a mitigation specialist. We are fully versed in all of the requirements, state by state, area by area, region by region. So don't worry about having to do any of that work on your own. Let us, we've already done the work for you. We just need to know where you are, where you're at, and we'll take care of helping you understand everything that you need in order to be able to become active at doing radon mitigation whenever that timetable allows you to do so. And then we would help you register for those exams if you needed to. And past that, we would also help you with any mitigation licensing opportunities that you have through, there are exams that need to be taken there as well. And we have supporting material in order to be able to make sure that you are 100% prepared, or as prepared as you can be, in order to take and ultimately pass those specialist exams as well as those licensing exams. And the biggest takeaway I want you to have from this is, whether it's you, one of your trade partners, somebody that you think needs to be involved with this, this isn't an endeavor that you want to or should take on your own. Please let us help you by providing you with the step-by-step guide from beginning to end, and until you are completely where you need to be and able to help every single homeowner that you're engaged with. As far as it being future-proofed is concerned, our compliant kits are already they're ready today. Okay, whether it be the audible alarm side of it or the active system, they're all available either in kit form or available as separate items. We will also help with any other level that is required from a radon mitigation standpoint. And that includes things like system design. Sometimes it's not always the easiest thing to be able to just visually look and see where you want a radon mitigation system to go. Well, we have experts ready to help with all of that. And as you go along and you find out, if you say, as an example, you were mentioning being in Minnesota, and you have passive systems that have been installed for a while. As we start testing those homes and we find out that those homes are active, we don't got to go through with replacing everything. It can be a simple fan and alarm system, which is available separately to be installed. So we can actively or proactively engage every single home that we walk into, and now be able to handle the mitigation problem that radon can present inside of a home. So with that, we're ready to answer any additional questions that have come forth. I'll let Brian, who's the expert, handle most of it. And of course, if there's anything that I would add, I will. But yeah, what kind of questions does everybody have?
One question I have, and maybe it's more for Brian, is are you seeing some of the codes change? I mean, we've seen the Indoor Air Plus version 2 change, but are you seeing some codes change at the state or municipal level?
Yeah, Aaron, the Minnesota's ahead of the curve. So it's all based on the ANSI standards, and we were talking beforehand. ARST recently rebranded as the Indoor Environments Association. That's more recent. And ARST was the governing body for radon in the background for a long time. And what you're seeing is the audible alarm portion of it. Minnesota already requires it, ahead of the curve there. So you have to check your system and see if you have one. If not,
I do not
all
have
right.
one.
Well,
and I'm going.
you're going to text me offline. I'm going to send you one. I want you to bring it up to compliance. So
right.
it's battery operated. It goes into, look, I grew up in the trade. We're in trade industry that, we understand the mechanicals, right? You always talk about, hey, what furnace or air conditioner do you have? Most consumers won't know. They might know the brand. Typically, 80% of the time, they reference a thermostat, right? So it's out of sight, out of mind. Radon is no different. A lot of people, as we've gotten into it, you get the scary stories. We're like, oh, I unplugged that thing. I only plug it in when I think it's hot. Wait, that's not how it works, right? Or, oh, I tested, the most common we hear is, oh, I tested 5 years ago or 7 years ago when I bought the home. Okay, great. Please retest. And they're like, well, why? It's ever changing, right? You could test it today and you could test it every year for 5 years and never have an issue. It's underneath the earth, right? You might put a pool in the backyard. Now you're changing the airflow dynamics in the earth, how that gas is traveling, and now you have a radon issue. And if you get through the nitty gritty of all the details, anytime you make any structure, mechanical or structural change to the building, EPA has said forever, please retest your home. That was as we started researching the category. That's where it started highlighting, going, our industry should be in it. We should be looking at this a little bit differently than even we did a couple years ago. So that's where, the alarm is a big one. That's more recent. That code was added to the ANSI ARST standards, I believe in 2019. But it took a little bit because of the pandemic to get fully implemented. So a lot of the states, Minnesota's already adopted that. They adopt the most current ANSI standards. That's where you're going to see Iowa recommends the alarm, Minnesota requires it, Indiana requires it, Illinois requires the audible alarm, and they didn't in the past, right? So that's going to be something that as you activate those systems, I always equate it to a sump pump alarm, right? I want to know if my sump pump's not working. So if that fan is not working, it has nothing to do with the measurement of radon, and radon's always there, right? It's just at what level. The system prevents it from being elevated unsafe levels, right? So the audible alarm just allows you to know that system's operating like it should be. So that's the biggest change, and it's nice to see that the EPA has put that into the Indoor Air Plus with the ANSI standards and where that's coming from. So that's a little bit of historical context. And you're starting to see too, some of the lending side of things, you're starting to see the testing requirement in the commercial realm. For multifamily as well. That's some more recent code changes that, again, the codes have changed because it's all about that ground floor contact to the earth. Anytime you put any structure on the earth, you can build up unsafe levels of radon, essentially, right? So the only way to know is the test. And so you're starting to see more on the multifamily and the commercial side as well, because what happens? I put giant slabs of concrete on the earth. If I don't test all the ground floor occupancies, I could miss one. And the EPA just got done, along with ARST in some of the states. They did a multi-year study on multifamily where they had them in Florida, Colorado, the Northeast, the Midwest. And it's, to get the confidence, it's going to be 100% ground floor testing, because that's the only way to know, right? So you get into that. If you only test 75%, you missed a good portion, unfortunately. So that's a lot of what's coming. You're seeing more and more of that in the news, in some of the updates, as well as some of the lending side to require testing moving forward. So the Indoor Air Plus is just getting ahead of it, which is great to see.
Yeah, Fantastic. And can we get radon test kits from AprilAire as well? Is that something you
Yeah.
offer? Do you just
Yes. Nope. We
okay?
have the test kits available as well. So, if you're offering it as a service, you need to. I'll always default. Ask us about your state rules. If you're doing it as a service and providing the results, if you're, the test kits are analyzed by a third party lab. So not our lab. So, it's fully EPA, every state compliance. They do all the reporting and all the analyzation to all the rules. So, but some of the states, if you have questions on what the state rules are, because every state has some subtleties that can be different on the licensing requirements depending on the services that you're offering. But yes, we do have test kits available, and we have the radon mitigation products available. So
Fantastic.
we kitted that alarm with the really for new construction moving forward a couple years ago before we launched the product, because we knew this trend was coming and it's the right thing to do. So we have that compliant ready kit with that audible alarm in there ready to go. So just one less variable to have to worry about.
And Brian and Brandon, good availability through distribution currently?
Yes. Yeah. Any of the distribution partners, if they have any gaps or you have any questions, but the national distributors have them in the systems ready to go. So if you find a gap, call me, because I can always help connect the dots with the team. So the part numbers have been active, and that's what we were talking, Aaron, right beforehand. Our industry takes about 3 years is typically, so we're getting right on that cusp of where it takes off on any product launch in the trade industry for getting part numbers set up. They're there, they're active, inventory is available nationwide, and then it's just making sure your local branch has it. So don't hesitate to reach out. We can help connect those dots.
Great. So just to recap, if you haven't tested for radon this year, test. If you don't have the alarm system, go check your manometer right now, which I'm going to do after this call, and make sure mine's working. And then if we have HVAC partners, or I assume our plumbing partners could get certified for this as well.
Yeah, plumbing, HVAC, electrical, your full service trade partners. Some of them do it in other areas. Some are radon only specialists. So, Minnesota's highly licensed. So there's a combination of both in your market, Aaron, specifically. So it's just a matter on, don't let the licensing process scare you.
Yeah.
That's what we've spent a lot of time on, because that was the biggest VOC we got initially as we looked at the project was, hey, what's the rule here versus here? And it can be different. And then, multi-state operators, they have a different scale to look at it. So let us help you navigate the process is the biggest thing, because it can be confusing. I've read more state statutes than I'll ever care to admit than as I learned about this industry. It's a great industry. They're doing a lot of the right things, and now we're trying to help bring more awareness to the great thing that they've been doing for many years. So
well, and I applaud your commitment to continuing to educate the industry. And what I would say is that if you're out there and you have an HVAC contractor or plumber, why not offer them the AprilAire radon mitigation certification course? Get them enrolled in that. Get that as part of your quotations going forward. Again, I think it's, depending where you are, it's a no-brainer to put a passive system in with the option after completion to test it for radon and then add the active radon mitigation system with the alarm after the fact. Brandon and Brian, I know prices vary around the country. I know what I paid for mine to be installed after the fact, but what's the typical range of the cost of a active radon mitigation system in a home?
If you add it after the fact, you're between 1,800 and really 3,200, depending on the area of the country.
Right.
Crawl spaces are the big one that you're seeing more, because historically, right, basement's easy. You're in the Midwest. I'm in the Midwest as well, out of Madison, and I grew up out east with a lot of basements. That was where it kind of just, over time was like, well, the basement's built up unsafe levels. Where Brandon started, it does not matter if it's a slab, basement, or crawl space. As you encapsulate crawl spaces, right, you're making that closed environment kind of like a basement. you have a greater chance of higher levels of radon building up. So
Right.
crawl spaces get, if you're encapsulating, please add, make sure you're working with that, the encapsulation company to make sure they add the airflow drainage underneath that crawl space as they encapsulate it, so that it's radon ready, right? That's really important, because that's the hard part, right? If you're just adding a fan after the fact, you're saving the homeowner a lot of money on the front, on the back end as well, right? So
That's right.
you're prepared. And then if there's anyone on there that, for your group, that if you want to do a case study with me, let me know, because a lot of I've seen a lot of data. You're moving airflow underneath the slabs. I have a couple builders that I've worked with that, they put them in on the front side active, which it's two-part. It's for the homeowners, and it's a radon mitigation system. They know they don't have to worry about it, but they also do it to help cure the slab faster in the construction process, and it's less warranty issues in the future. And before we got into it, I hadn't thought much about it, but I've heard that feedback enough that I don't have much data on that today. But if you're moving airflow underneath of a slab with the gravel, and you're following all the the indoor air environments, an active system has a lot of other benefits to the build process besides radon. Radon's the easy one that you can say, hey, I'm helping prevent a cancer causing, reducing, cancer, exposure potential, right? But it also has a lot of build benefits to the building process as well. And that's where I'm starting to see more that, hey, it should be in there anyways, but that might be why that puts you over the edge as you review that process, because no one wants to redo concrete if it doesn't cure correctly. So a little bit of extra airflow underneath it makes a big difference.
Great. Well, Brian Kenahan and Brandon Glancy, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us today. And I want to thank AprilAire for continuing to lead the industry in healthier homes and education and certification of your trade partners. So I'll look forward to seeing you both at the EEBA Summit, October 10th through 12th in Salt Lake.
Excellent. I'll give Joseph a hard time. He didn't send me an invite yet.
So, okay, well, for sure, see Joseph there. All right.
Well, good. All right.
Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Aaron.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.